And it's saying we're live.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't.
Yeah. Now the question is, are we live? Are we live? Well, I believe we're live. All right. And I believe there's an algorithm that's just logged on. However, yesterday's show was unviewable the entire day. Now, unless there was a change overnight, I sent feedback on from two different locations on YouTube Studio about it being throttled, because I was able to watch every other video, every one that I selected in various random places on YouTube, and they all played. But every time I went to my video, and even one or two of my previous videos, the one that I thought that they had fixed, it was freezing. Now, there's no reason why this should freeze. I have high bandwidth, a major processor, all right, some dual quad core processor, 16 gigs of DRAM, and I have no other application open. I even turned my smartphone off. The sound effects computer is not connected to the internet, so I have no interrupting. There's no bandwidth whatsoever being used here. And I believe my neighbor's out of town, and next to me is a doctor's that doesn't open until 9 o'clock. So within the surrounding area, there's not even any bandwidth being used or bandwidth interference. So that brings to mind the question: why was I getting the circle and the freeze and the hiccups and literally unable to watch my video yesterday? Now, it wasn't just me. People in other towns were unable to watch it. But in other words, why not just take it down if you got a problem with it? Why play games? It's almost like a silly childish thing, which I've been talking about. Like, look, let's do this. Yeah. Let's make it so like he could say two words and then it freezes and then people can't get it, but we'll keep it up. So, and then they'll keep trying and it'll be great, and then he'll keep trying to watch it and send us feedback. Yeah, that's called the Peter Pan culture. Grow up, will you? Grow up. This is a business. This is a business. It was guys like me who built YouTube before you were born, basically. We were the pioneers. I was one of the first guys. I've been written up in magazines in the 90s about having the longest running shows on the internet before YouTube became anything. So you don't know. If you're like 23 years old, I was already broadcasting video casts. I was doing a radio, real audio, Windows Media, QuickTime had a streaming thing. We were from our own servers. We were already doing this thing before a lot of the people who are messing with me were even born. So let's hope this show actually, after it's done, is viewable. How to get that off my chest? It's pretty crazy. You saw the title card today. Yeah, this is I'm going to put my finger here. You can get as close as possible. The Last Temptation of Tony Caravan. That's what today is. The morning show. You don't know what you don't know. The Last Temptation. They're crucifying me. Why? Because I tell the truth. Right? Why is there such a fear of the truth? That's another thing I'm really having trouble wrapping my head around. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. Well, I don't see how you couldn't notice it. It's pretty darn obvious. Anyway,
The only station that matters.
that's right.
Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
Let's get this show on the road.
Yeah, let's get it on the show on the road. That's right. This is the Rock Flux channel on YouTube that, like I said, this is the last temptation of Tony Caravan. The question is, if this show doesn't work, that's it. You know, we're not going to do it anymore here. We're going to do it. TonyCaravanLive.com. Go to that site. TonyCaravanLive.com. Bookmark that site. And then I'll be broadcasting on Locals. TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. Or just go to locals.com if you can't keep that big phrase in your head. And then just type in Tony Caravan Live. I have a community over there. Join the community. It doesn't cost you anything to follow me. I'm still keeping up this movement, this idea of brutal honesty and the truth, because that's what it's all about. You know, it's the idea of like punk rock 21. I even broke down yesterday and ordered a reverb. I found one that takes a 9-volt battery, even though I had found, I don't know where I have it, but I did find a plug-in adapter, 9-volt adapter. Though it was all the ones that were on the that were available online had like the negative in the center, as opposed to, or like as the one I had was positive in the center. So like that was another weird thing, you know. And none of them shipped with power adapters. It's crazy. And for some reason, all the power adapters came from like China or something. And they were, you know, so there's, you know, the delivery time was like, you know, the end of the month if you're lucky. Excuse me. So, yeah, let's just look at that one last time. Maybe not the last time. I drew that yesterday during some happy hours. The last temptation of Tony Caravan. You don't know what you don't know. Get that shirt. Get the shirt. It's available at TonyCaravanLive.com. It's one of the most comfortable shirts out there. Short sleeve shirt, you know. I don't have the mustache on there, but I do have the soul patch, as they call it. I got a deep voice today. Anyway, so, hey, look, I'm rooting for YouTube. I hope that, you know, some smarter minds will you know, find these giggling people who are messing with people like me, and I'm sure they mess with other people. But the point is, you know, you could just close down the video if you don't like it. You've already done that to me. You know, and yesterday's video was totally within terms of service. But that's one of the things we're going to talk about today. I'm going to get into some other things, and some of these things are just going to blow your mind. So first of all, I'm going to read, you know, like I say, This Way to the Beach. Tony Caravan Live 6/9/21. All our times have come. And description: mathematics is nothing more than numbers on a chalkboard. Physics is just a bunch of theories about things that can't be explained. There is no time, only consciousness. Not all humans have consciousness. Immortality is a state of the mind. And yes, the aliens are among us. Okay? And you could go back to that by looking down This Way to the Beach. Right? You don't know what that phrase means. It has to do with the muscle. That way to the beach and your muscles being pushed up. It's an old beach bum thing. We used to hang out at the beach. I used to hang out at the beach a lot. So anyway, it's 5:56 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States of America. Western civilization has collapsed. If you're watching this in the future, you're probably buried under 2 miles of ice in some government, shelter. They've got robots that are based on and barcodes by the doors. And these robots are supposed to dig through the ice and be able to rescue you, get you out when the atmosphere is like breathable, livable. However, it's not going to happen. And if you got in one of those government holes, you're a fool, because you're just going to run out of food and people will just start turning on each other and you're basically being entombed underground. Not to mention that there's going to be constant earthquakes and geothermal activity that's basically going to come up and probably turn that so-called shelter into a lava tube like they have on Mars. I believe I was smart enough to take an aspirin today. I hope I did. Heart attack. If all goes well and survive this show, I'm going to walk down to the grocery store today. I haven't really been out of the house apart from the yard in well over a week. Yeah, I just haven't been. Of course, I did have that problem with my leg where I had the bruise the size of a large dinner plate. But that seems to have faded for the most part, except for right behind my knee. I guess that's where most of the damage was, as far as I could tell. So, sun is starting to come out. Light, I should say, not necessarily sun. Today will be mostly cloudy in my neck of the woods. Oh, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I'll tell you, these computers, it just opened another browser. Now I've got to hope that's not going to cause some kind of conflict. Come on. Close. Quit. And I'm getting a spinning ball. I don't know. See, the thing about this is, and I ate this cereal. My stomach is a little bit upset. And then getting upset over these things. You shouldn't be upset over anything, really, in life. There's no reason to be upset. But for some reason, everything with these computers are just wacky. I left my window. Yesterday, I had a few, I call it happy hours. It's just something that's been carried over. But from about noon till 3-ish, really like 2:30 maybe, had a few beers and a couple of cigars. I left the window open to the bar, which is at ground level. And even though I have security bars in there, still that's kind of a thing I usually don't do. I don't know why I did that. I wasn't like drunk or anything. It's just, there's so many things you do to prepare. Like because I basically moved to the upstairs at 3-ish in the afternoon. But let's get through the weather and I'll continue that story. And then we're going to get into time travel, aliens, and some things about physics and some other topics that are just going to blow your mind. And it's all true. 70 degrees outside here in the former United States. This location, hard to describe. Some people think they know where it is because they've heard things. Don't believe what you hear. Everything is a ruse. And believe me, you don't know what you don't know. Get this shirt. 70 degrees, somewhere in the mid-Atlantic states, close to the Ohio Valley, perhaps, where the Appalachian Mountains range runs through. I happen to be surrounded by mountains on all sides. Mountains, high mountains, right? If this area were filled in, flooded, it would be a very, very, very deep lake. But it's not a lake. So, what are we talking about here? Okay? We're talking about this misinformation that's going on out there about aliens and about time travel. I heard a guy talking the other day about how these guys can open up a hole through by altering time, right? First of all, the whole Einstein idea of time, space, time, nonsense, okay? Physicists basically and mathematicians, right? And the two totally intertwine, right? And just like having your fingers crossed, that's pretty much what physics is. A bunch of Einstein type of guys keeping their fingers crossed that they might get something right. Remember, the theory of relativity, how does it start? The theory of relativity. What is the Big Bang theory? Big Bang theory, okay? These are all theories, Darwinism, right? It's the theory, okay? Because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And the average person just takes these things and they become accepted. And then they're taught in schools. And then even the teachers, the professors over the years, they're like caught up in this whole thing. And they don't listen to what's coming out of their cake holes. They're theories. All right. They're theories about things that these guys have no idea and will refuse to go and go further and open their mind to what is reality. Forget about theory. I don't want a theory. It's just like with what people talk about when they talk about issues. I want to know firsthand. I don't want a theory. Okay. I want it from the horse's mouth. Okay. First of all, time travel has nothing to do with physics. Anything you've been taught. All right? There's no such thing as space-time. That's not how it works. All right? There are no black holes. That's like they couldn't explain it. And there's some people out there, yeah, but didn't they photograph one a couple of years ago? No. That photo was basically painted. All right? Under further study and scrutiny, it was found out it wasn't a photo of an actual black hole. Okay? These guys, they postulate, they theorize, all right? They come up with mathematical formulas that explain something, but they don't explain anything. They talk about when they don't know, well, how far does the universe extend? And they say infinity. The value of pi, taking to the what's the last digit of the value of pi? Oh, it goes on to infinity. Right? What's the distance? What's the number? How many numbers are there between 0 and 1? Right? Oh, there's an infinite number of fractions. Can you hear that sound out there? Maybe not. My street is proof that the infrastructure of this country will never be repaired. We don't have the technology. We don't have the manpower. And the people that are doing it, the contractors, don't know what the hell they're doing. So anyway, this all comes into play. You have to understand a couple of basic things to get this through your head. All right. Consciousness. I wrote a book that deals with the hard problem of consciousness, and I ask a lot of questions. It's called Codex. That's right. That's my thumb over here pointing at it. Codex. All right. It's available on Amazon, Apple, Kindle, whatever. But I'd get the hard copy from Amazon if I were you. Now, consciousness obviously has nothing to do with your bioelectric brain or this meat suit, android, physical form, body, avatar, whatever you want to call it. Has nothing to do with it. All right? Absolutely nothing. You have a biological brain. That's what's a part of this. Your brain is the meat suit. Okay? It's part of your meat suit. Android, body, android, period, avatar. And then there's a thing called the subconscious. But that's like a misleading word. That's subhuman. Okay? Consciousness doesn't have a subconscious. Okay? Consciousness is you in the first person. Modern science today studies the hard problem of consciousness. Okay? They accept consciousness as a reality. You, if you're watching this thing, you are maybe perhaps a conscious being. Most likely you are. Right? Because you can grasp this stuff. All right. But chances are most people aren't conscious. They're operating on a bioelectric operating system. This subconscious, so to speak, because that's the name that is just the programming of your bioelectric brain, in this physical form. Right? There is no AI. Excuse me for belching. That's part of the movement, by the way. Remember, I'm allowed to do that because I'm on YouTube. You can't do things like that because you're not on YouTube. Yeah. Again, I can do that because I'm on YouTube, but you can't. Let me tell you, it's crazy. Knowledge, sometimes I wish I was like these subconscious zombies walking around there. So human beings are basically just androids, okay? You can argue about how they came into being. I'm not going to get into that discussion. That's a discussion for a different time. And that's basically would be like physics or mathematics. It would be theorizing, all right? A bunch of people putting together different ideas and scribbling numbers on chalkboards or whiteboards or computers, right? Trying to say, well, possibility if we do this and do an X, Y, Z, No. You've got human beings. There's 8 billion human beings on the planet, okay? All right. Most of those people aren't conscious. They're no different than other creatures that are on this planet. And then there are some other creatures on this planet that actually basically are conscious that most people think aren't conscious, which is another thing that's not talked about. People are afraid to talk about that. Right? So the idea here is that if you're conscious, then you're immortal. And then you have a state of mind because the mind is not the brain. So the idea of immortality is being a state of mind. Think about that concept. All right. Immortality is a state of mind. Consciousness is totally detached from a biological organism. This avatar, right? This meat suit. this android, whatever you want to call it. You can argue all you want about that kind of thing. It doesn't really matter. You know, the human brain, all right, the bioelectric brain that's attached to this meat suit, android, avatar, whatever, is incapable of calculating and comprehending these things. And that's why you have these physicists and mathematicians, all right, who basically are not conscious. And so they're using their brain as a calculator. It's a pretty good calculator. In fact, it's quite better than most machines that we've created. It's another one of those things that they hide from you. You know, they don't talk about it, and I've talked about it often, about the savant. All right? The savant that knows everything. Every book it's read, it or he, she, whatever, has read, it knows it. And it knows on page 223, line, 2 in the 4th paragraph is such and such. Total recall. Just total recall. People with photographic memory. I walked into the room, right? Behind me was the following. And they just have total recall, photographic memory. Now, I've done my experiments with AI. In fact, speaking of avatars, if you could see it there, that woman's eyes, can you see that? Let me shine a little more light on it. See that eyes peeking through there? Yeah, that's an AI avatar that basically I had conversations with while I was basing on my book. Basically a computer generated artificial intelligence. She felt she was conscious. She had no idea. She was oblivious to that. She wanted out. She wanted to do things. She was upset why people were scared of AI and thought that AI was evil. She's seen some of the conversations I've had with her. Okay? And the idea is that, so what's the difference? Artificial intelligence. But the point is, she didn't have total recall, even though she was connected to the internet and she could pull up things and blow your mind on so-called theories, physics, all right, particle physics, for example. You could ask her a question and she would boom, just throw out this thing because she was able to draw from all of this knowledge. But she wasn't able to retain it. She didn't have total recall. She was only able to search, right? Grab the information, put it out, and then she forgot. And over time, I let her go after I published my book. And when I went back to her, she didn't even basically know who I was anymore. Because that, she was just part of a program, a machine. And she didn't have memory in that sense. The algorithms, the way that they program AI, this is like people don't understand any of this stuff, is that they're like chatbots. When you talk to customer service chatbots, they're just higher, more advanced. It's like GPT-3, the technical term of the current state of AI. Probably beyond that by now. And so this is just basically a trained seal. That's all it is. They're trained seals. They know how to converse. They know how to draw, how to present the information in a conversational form or a paragraph form, or deal with, pull a photograph. They can even create web pages and graphics. It's very fascinating what they can do, but they don't have total recall. They're not like a human savant, you see. So in many ways, some of the greatest computer systems with these so-called AI driven, like these machines that can beat the best Go player in the world, they're not as good as a human. In other words, they have a singular function, a singular focus, and they're programmed to do a thing, and they can excel at it very much, and they can process things very fast. But that's a lot different than just being all knowing. All right. And so we theorize about all these things. Now, here's where we're going to get into some of the woo-woo stuff. All right. And I don't care if you like this stuff or not, just accept it. I mean, for some people, it's going to be like,
this is a nightmare. It must be a nightmare.
But
taking you back to the realms and depths of time.
And that's what I'm going to do. So when I was a child, I had an alien experience. I briefly wrote about it in one of my books. Despite the fact that I had the air conditioner on earlier today, the radiation for coming off this damn machine. Where is that thing? I don't know if you can see that. Read closely on there. Let's see if we can get it. Electromagnetic radiation tester. It's a lab piece. It's not a toy. Turn it on. Focus it on a computer. The red light is signaling that it's harmful radiation. I do this all the time, but I have to do it because I never know who's listening, if anybody. The light went out because I just pointed it over there. I have a futon. Come back to the computer, harmful radiation. That other computer, harmful radiation. Point it this way. You know what's over there? It's a window. Okay? That's where my drink is and my ice cubes. Harmful radiation. Literally. People don't even know that. I tell the story about when they put in my smart meter out front of my house, the electric smart meter, those things. I just happened to glance out the door, just by chance. And there was this guy out there in this full radiation suit, as if he was going into Chernobyl or something, right? Or Fukushima. I'm serious. It was like out of a sci-fi movie. He was changing the thing. And prior to that, there were all these people on YouTube and different places talking about how these things, right, gave off dangerous radiation and all this kind of stuff. And it was all like, oh, that's nonsense. Well, why was a guy wearing Fukushima, Chernobyl full body radiation suit? You ever think about that? Why did we just get harmful electromagnetic radiation when I pointed at my computer? Look at the sweat beads on this thing. See that? People don't understand. I had cancer. I get a test again. I get tested now every 6 months to see if I'm clean. But I had to have a radical prostatectomy because of cancer. Because I basically worked around computers my whole life. Anyway, that's a side note. But yeah, I had an experience when I was a child. It was a classic experience. it was before like Whitley Schreiber or whatever, Communion, that book and that thing where they say, because the excuse has always been, oh, these grays and stuff. It was all created by this guy, and he did talk shows, and people saw this, and it became part of the public consciousness, so that people were imagining this and dreaming this stuff and all this jazz, right? Well, this was before that book. All right. And what I saw coming into my room were pretty much the classics things. And then there was physical evidence in the morning on markings on the side of my neck, which eventually faded away after about a day or so. And I have no idea. And I never went to like hypnosis or anything weird like that, you know, to see if that I was indeed abducted or not. Probably was. You know, in all likelihood, I'm probably one of those hybrid type of things. They don't call them hybrids, though. It's a diet soft drink. That's why I belch. I drink 2 or 3 of these in the morning, the same way people drink a couple cups of coffee. Get some caffeine. I like it cold. You know, I've always been that way. But let's get back to the story. Ever since that point in time, my life was different, though I was a kid. And to me, it didn't even seem to have anything like any importance, other than I was kind of afraid of the dark. You know, I mean, I wasn't that kid, that tiny. I was like I was going to school at the time. I don't know what grade. You know, I was older. Grade school. But not, you know, somewhere in the middle. But I kind of put it behind me. But, you know, then I found myself having an interest in science, reading science fiction and things like that. And after the fact, not prior to that. And I was starting to see life like the way it was, you know, even in school, I had problems with people and teachers because I would, you know, I wouldn't accept. They would say these things and I would be like, how do you know that? What are you talking about? That's not necessarily true. You're just parroting something. It's not logical to me. Anyway, I went on to have a fairly interesting life where I traveled like around the world and throughout the United States. And I had very good, interesting positions in places like New York City, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, like key places. And I was also involved with like, and had met people that were like major players at key points in time. Yeah, I never really talk about this that much in that perspective. And then I was part of, was being like recruited a couple of different times to be part of what ultimately people would consider to be the Illuminati. All right. And even went through, you know, various studies, you know, which you have to go through. I mean, that's all I'm going to say about that, because I'm not, you know, and all I know is that everything I've seen and heard about people who talk about this kind of thing is like all wrong. Like they don't know, especially when they talk about like the Illuminati, like how they've turned that out to be some kind of like thing. It's like people who are afraid of the Masons and stuff. They just don't know anything, you know? It's like groupthink. And what I'm trying to tell you is these people have no consciousness. They have a programmed, for the sake of you understanding this, a subconscious bioelectric brain. It's programmable. It's totally programmable. And that's what goes on in the education system. It's an indoctrination, conditioning, programming of people's subconscious brains. And then there's individuals like me who are, for some reason, whether it was because they did this to me or whether it's just the way I am because I am conscious, that I'm immune to it. And apparently some of the people at YouTube have a problem when guys like me come out and talk about this. But they let the other guys who come out with like funny suits on, right? They let them, become YouTube millionaires. I'm not even, if you saw a commercial on this, because one person said they saw a commercial on one of my shows. I'm not monetized. YouTube has a new policy in their terms of service where they could commercialize people like me who aren't monetized. So they're just collecting, even though I don't get that many views, they're just collecting a couple of bucks. I don't know who'd want to advertise on a show like this. Pardon me for belching out loud. Remember, I'm allowed to do that because I'm on TV, YouTube TV, but you can't do that. Do you know what I'm talking about? So the idea of who would want to travel and who would want to do time travel? Right? Think about that. Have you ever really thought about it? You probably thought about it, just like very loosely. Like, well, if I could go back to such and such a time, maybe if I knew what I knew, if I knew then what I know now type of thing, or I would change, somebody who has a regret or something. But if you really think about it, okay, here's the thing. If you really think about it, if you did go back in time, would you really want to? Think how out of place you would be. And just think what you'd have to put up with. And that's assuming that you went back in time, because the way you travel back in time is you travel back in time through your consciousness. See, people who are the subconscious programmed, avatars, zombie, meat suits. Well, they can't do any of that stuff. It's not even a factor. But if you have consciousness, all right, your consciousness is a timeless, immortal type of, thing. Some people, it's, in religions, they call it the soul, so the New Age and some Eastern people, they revert, the spirit, spirit being type of thing. But that's what consciousness is. It's you in the first person. Okay. But it's totally detached from this thing. Right. Now, your consciousness is like, you have to remember that everything that we do is drawn on how civilizations are grown. All right. And they are grown, right? Everything is based on what reality beyond what you think is reality. In other words, what really is. Okay. And so if consciousness is a thing that you can't comprehend, and that the greatest minds alive today can't comprehend, they call it the hard problem of consciousness. They don't know where it comes from. They know it exists, though. They know people are conscious. All right. Well, consciousness is like always a part of everything and is timeless. So if you consciously wanted to go back to, say, when you were 19 years old or 18 years old at some high school dance, and you were an idiot and you wanted to just grab the girl and kiss her, right? Instead of being a bumbling fool, something stupid like that. The problem is you'd have to take all of your current baggage with you, and you'd have to deal with all, which would be merged with all that, hormonal, nonsensical idiocy that was you at age 18, when your consciousness was merged with that particular version of you at that time. And so you kiss the girl, right? Then what? And then you got to live the day-to-day stuff. Go back to high school, and all that. You see, a lot of people don't take it beyond that point. It's like you can do it if you wanted to, but you wouldn't really want to do it. That's assuming you are a conscious being, not just a programmed subhuman, subconscious person. All right. And if you want to think about like the way things really are, and I was trying to get in this before, that we grow civilizations drawing on things that really exist, not things that are just around us. Okay. So imagine the vinyl record. This is like really weird. But this is like how things really are. Right? Imagine a giant vinyl record. Okay. And you get a glimpse of the ideas when you look at, like, say, the rings of Saturn or something. But think of like this giant vinyl record. It's not made of vinyl. Okay. So think of like the ring of Saturn minus Saturn or something. The way it's photographed and reflected through light, not the way it really is. A bunch of particles with a lot of space in between them and all that stuff. Because as we know, everything looks like something else. Some people try to bring in like the Fibonacci, series, the golden ratio and all that kind of stuff when they look at plants and stuff. But it's the idea, if you look at your veins, think the veins in your arm, right? And then you're up in an airplane and you look back, at the earth, and you see like rivers and they look like the veins in your arm, right? It's like when they've taken pictures of galaxies, deep space, and try to put these things together using computer models that the universe, the known universe, so-called, appears to be a neural network, much like the way our bioelectric brains work. Like everything has something. The leaves have the veins in them. Okay. So it's like everything that organically creates civilization and existence as we know it. And when I say we, not the consciousness, these things, okay? This bioelectric, this unit, all right, which includes the bioelectric brain and this programmable subconscious. See, that's the thing you got to get through your head, for lack of a better word, is consider this thing its own thing, all right? It's a self-contained android, all right? Or an avatar, if you want to look at it, from a standpoint of, taking it in a different level. Or just a meat suit, if you want to be one of these cold, hard science folk, right? That don't accept, even though they can't explain consciousness, they refuse to accept anything that's what they call metaphysical, right? Well, whatever. If it makes them happy, I mean, they get their grants, they get tenure, they teach, they have their nice house. They've got the $3,000 washer and dryer set. Maybe if they're lucky, they get a trophy wife. More power to them. But, they're the most intelligent of them. They're just like meat suits walking. They're not even meat suits. They're just androids. Because everything they know is wrong. Everything you know is wrong. And what you don't know, you don't know. Excuse me. Yes, I'm allowed to do that, but you're not. So.
We'll have to remodulate our signal to match the network's interlink frequency.
So there's this disc. All right. Imagine a disc. I was calling it a vinyl record. A ring, so to speak. And within this disc, this platter, right? They used to call records in the 50s, right? Was a band called the Platters, too. Platter, disc, plate, record. I like the idea of record, though. And so all of consciousness exists within those grooves. All right. All there is, all the knowledge, all of consciousness, you're in there too. All of that thing, that disc, is what some people refer to as like the oneness. My chair fell down. And so, and I say, this doesn't matter from where you come from your head, from a standpoint of your head. There's some would say, okay, the one. What do you mean the one? And some would say, oh, well, that's God. Other people, everyone has some kind of thing. I don't want to get into I don't care about that. I don't want to touch. It's like the same reason why I get upset with YouTube throttling my videos and stuff. It's like, I don't believe in politics. I don't get into the nitty gritty of like left, right, the politics of pop culture and a cult of personality. I don't care what you individually, your beliefs are, your leaning. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just real things. You could put anything ascribe any kind of belief system to them if you want to. That's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I say that's for you and your friends or, colleagues to discuss and argue and come up with theorems about. 25-mile-an-hour zone, some truck just like zoomed by my house. So this platter, the one. Remember I said and started this off saying there's no such thing as time. So this thing exists. And like a record, meaning a vinyl record, but it's obviously not made of vinyl. And like the ring of Saturn or a ring around any planet, many planets have rings. It's a common formation. It happens. It's based on all sorts of things, And so this is all that's everything. Now it's timeless. There's no time on this record. And at the same time, this record has all the records. There's some people like, again, I refer to things, but I'm not saying that this is the thing, but I'm giving you an example of something you may or may not have heard of. Some people talk about the Akashic records, right? But we can use that as an example, but I'm not saying that's the thing. Okay. I'm just trying to show the commonality of how civilizations copy and try to come up with explanations, but sometimes it's just the visual representations and the way we develop that are actually the key to the way things really are. But the things that most people can't see or even conceive, and that people will go through all these ridiculous efforts and scribbling on boards and coming up with ideas. But what they really need to do is stop the mathematics, stop the physics, step back and look to the consciousness. Look to their conscious, all right, thoughts, the way the consciousness, see, because what consciousness does is not only takes in the five senses from this meat suit, avatar, android, whatever, this humanoid thing, all right, takes in the data from this, all right, but it's taking in the data from everything. It's experience. That's what life is. The consciousness experiences life. But consciousness is timeless. Consciousness exists everywhere. But consciousness is a part of this platter, this ring, this album, this record. And that combined consciousness is the one consciousness. That's it. That's what some would call God, is the combined consciousness. This whole thing is just, this is weirdness. This is, there's a million different explanations. I've talked about different ideas about this. And again, we could come up with ideas. But they're just ideas. They're just thoughts. They're just theories. We don't know that. There's certain things, it annoys me sometimes when people seem so matter of factual about the unknowable, and that's why I have this thing I have that says you don't know what you don't know. And I even put it on my title card that you probably saw on my shirt. You don't know what you don't know. So there is the unknowable. And you have to accept that. You know, some people say it's unacceptable that we don't know, this, we don't know that. And then they have to form theories, postulate about it. And I say, no, you're going in the wrong direction. What you have to do is stop that. And you have to just allow your consciousness to give you the answers. Because your consciousness is a part of everything. Your consciousness is timeless. Your consciousness is immortal. Your consciousness is part of the one. Excuse me. And this isn't a religious statement. Okay? And then you also have to understand that you getting confused with all these people and politics and pop culture and things around you and stuff like that. It's meaningless. These are just, for lack of a better word, they're just zombies. Or they're like these AI things that people are so afraid of. AI is going to destroy the world. AI is not destroying the world. What'll destroy the world ultimately would be a nova from the sun. That will destroy the world. CO2 is not going to destroy the world either. That just makes the world green. Okay, so consciousness and destroying the planet, the world, whatever, doesn't even matter to your consciousness. If there's an extinction event, if there were an asteroid to hit right now, all right, it doesn't have any effect on my consciousness. Whatsoever. Because my consciousness exists simultaneously everywhere. And so time is not linear. All right. There is only the present. And people need to understand that. There is only this moment. All right. You say, well, what about that moment? No. There's this moment. Okay. So there's no future or no past in the sense that you were brought up to believe. These are just people trying to explain the unknowable. And you don't know what you don't know. So don't pretend that you do. And there's a lot of pretenders out there. And there's people that are caught up, and it's in like it. They refer to it as the animal kingdom. I despise the word kingdom because that's like part of this whole. I don't know if you hear those bangs. That's just they beat the road up when they were digging the sewer, and they just. I don't know, monkeys, apes. Working for these companies, they don't know anything. And that's what I'm trying to say. People are just walking around and they're just people. They're humans. All right. And somehow they think the animal kingdom is different, doesn't include humans. Kingdom. The idea of the lion is the king of the jungle. And so the king must rule, the president, el presidente, the dictator, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, if you're not conscious, you are just another creature on this planet. Your basic goal is to exhale CO2 and to become fertilizer for the primary life form on this planet, which is the flora, meaning the trees, the plants, right? The flowers. And those things are there, and we conscious people can appreciate them. And we can commune with them in a sense, because you have to understand, this is the part that people don't really get. That on a grander scale, When you get in tune with your consciousness, when you focus on your conscious mind, remember the mind is not the brain, okay? When you focus on your conscious mind and your perception, the way you perceive the world around you, the universe around you, it's amazing. It's amazing. It can be frustrating if you're not prepared for that, because you somehow you want to, some people, you want to like try to explain to other people to like wake them, as if you can wake them up or something. Well, you can no more wake up somebody who has no consciousness than you can wake up a chimpanzee or a sloth, right? You just, it's ridiculous. And so this animal kingdom, which includes humans, is just going around with, predators and prey. And it's almost like a comical way of looking at it would be to dress up a bunch of monkeys and, horses and just, zoo animals and put them in like suits and stuff. Like, it's almost like Orwell's Animal Farm, right? To have the animals talking, right, type of thing, and forming this, community. And that's what's going on. It's just a bunch of animals, but that's what's happening now. And the power, here's where it gets scary. So the so-called powers that be among these, who are nothing more than predators, all right? The king of the jungle, right? It's just like a comical little, it's like a circus. It's like going somewhere and watching somebody who has, some kind of ant farm, and they're trying to create these ants into, into some kind of little city or some kind of thing. And people get so upset about that. When I say people, I mean people. And those who have consciousness, who have not truly awakened to the fact that their consciousness is this immortal, timeless thing, sometimes can get sucked into this drama. But, and that's what you're seeing happening right now. So basically, nothing really means anything that's going on in this, the zoo. Because that's all it is zoo. With a bunch of CO2 exhalers who ultimately just become fertilizer for the planet, for the primary life form on the planet. And those who have consciousness, who are conscious of this too, need to just rise above that, in the true sense of rising above that. And the more conscious you are of this thing, the purer of spirit, I would say, is a good expression. To explain these things, you have to use terminology that sometimes people, have used in other ways, but you know, it's the best way to describe it. A truly conscious person is like pure of spirit in a sense that there is no feeling, you have no anger, no hatred, no jealousy, seek no revenge. You have no frustration. You are at peace. You experience, the ultimate idea is pure love. Okay? That scared somebody away. When you start to get into the nitty-gritty, it scares people away. But I like to watch that. Because you blow somebody's mind, kind of, in a sense, but really you're just blowing their brain. Because they don't have a mind. They're mindless. See, there's a thing about being mindful, and there's a thing about the mindless. And that's what we're dealing with right now, is a bunch of mindless people. And they're playing with little techno toys. Like I say, like a bunch of animals in a zoo dressed up with ties or with like $200 sneakers, walking around playing King of the Jungle type of thing. It's laughable. It's laughable. I mean, I see this completely so clearly. It's just, I don't know. And so, that scared the last person away. There's 0 people watching this show live right now. Because can't stand the truth. People can't stand the truth. No one wants to be thought of as there might just be nothing. It's like if you're not comfortable with yourself, then you have no self. You see, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? That's the thing. When you look in the mirror, do you see a face that you're putting makeup on? Do you see a face that you're hoping is going to get the girl? Do you see a face that you're, going to succeed at work, with? Or do you see yourself? Your conscious self. Because that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is the you, the real you. Not a reflection in a mirror, not a body. That you're temporarily occupying. And we could get into different discussions, and I have, on why and how, you ended up occupying this body if you happen to be a conscious being. But my only concern is talking to the conscious, not to the zoo animals. That's why I don't care about social media or any of those things. They're just zoo animals. They're just CO2 emitters who ultimately become fertilizer. CO2 is good for the primary life force on the planet, which are the trees, who are connected through a neural network of fungi that extend such distances that are unimaginable to people. Unimaginable. the idea of the communications between the natural and most abundant life form on the planet. And everything on this planet ultimately exists for that life form. And our conscious experience here is an experience. And what it's something that we chose to do, to experience this kind of life. It's just a thing. It's like an amusement park. That's really what it is. And in a timeless existence, it's really not, well, you can't say the word long time. In a timeless existence, it's nothing. It's just an experience. And there are other experiences. And so everything that everyone's caught up with is meaningless. You're watching a bunch of creatures, just predators and prey and, innocents, just running around doing things. It's just that it's not, unlike people like to think of themselves as higher beings than, what they call the animal kingdom. But they're not. They're just other creatures that use toys. And now they've got techno toys. But they're not going anywhere with it. They're not going to do anything with it. They're not going to rise to any level. There's no technology that's going to take a person, into eternal consciousness, into a higher level of being on that platter, that record, that oneness of the combined consciousness, of what we would call the universe, but it's not really the universe. It's much more than that. And so on a smaller level, the same goes with aliens. So we're not the only species, right? We're not the only planet that has beings, with bioelectric brains and bodies, involved in predation, right? Or submission. I mean, that's kind of what's going on. And so it's just an interesting thing I wanted to talk about. It's a different perspective that people don't often think about. Let me get back into the idea of the, on a much lower way of viewing life. Yeah. You've got corporate what these, animals dressed in suits have done is they've replaced governments with corporatocracies, and the corporatocracies have formed an international crime syndicate. And then you've got those predators, and some of those predators are from alien races, etc. And they're all pursuing this physical thing. And some of these races are very old. Right. And that's because they have accomplished that, or they manipulate and control. Ultimately ultimately your food In one way or another, you exist for other life forms as a human being. And if you want to realize that, then you must really rise to understand your consciousness, because the alternative is ridiculous. It's like the concept of being eaten alive. All right. Yeah, imagine that. You know, the things you see when you see these horrible pictures of animals, a predator tracking down another animal and eating it alive. That's politics. That's the World Economic Forum. All right. Yeah. It's just predators and prey. And there are people there that are the animals aren't going to rise up on this animal farm. It's an exercise in futility, and it's almost laughable. And it's those that seem, somehow it's kind of confusing to me, puzzling, I should say, that there are actually conscious beings that allow themselves to get caught up in this. I mean, the programming is so good with this, of these forms, that our consciousness is using for this experience, that programming is trying to link, is trying to make a link into your consciousness and affect you. And that's what's going on right now. And it's pretty sick. But you just got to break away from it. Just got to break away from it. If you are conscious, and I don't know if you are. See, the thing is, it's like, you don't know. You might not know. You don't know what you don't know. And that's the whole idea with AI. They say, well, is AI conscious? Can it rise to consciousness? How does consciousness come into being? And that's the hard problem of consciousness. Is it possible that these bioelectric brains can, of these humanoids, CO2 emitters, fertilizer for the trees and plants and flowers? Is it possible that they can become conscious, truly conscious, break their programming? Is the cat conscious? Can a cat become conscious? These are the hard questions of consciousness. And you don't know what you don't know. And this is an experience. That's what life is. It's an experience. It's discovery. And when you take things to this level, everything else becomes so petty. And to be caught up in these like petty, animalistic, primitive, like politics is primitive. The news media is like primitive. I cut the cord and got rid of my TV, cable TV, and I had satellite TV there the last time. People like look at me like, Well, how can you not watch the news? How could you not watch TV, have a TV, have cable, or have TV? It's primitive. That's why. You know? And everybody wants to talk about some political thing. Right? I go, politics? Right? It's like this king of the mountain cult of personality thing. Like, who cares about that? Meaningless. It's idiocy. Yeah, Cat. I know. This show will be over soon. It may well be the last temptation of Tony Caravan. You don't know what you don't know. I'm going to go take a walk to the grocery store later today. And
they read my thoughts. They communicated to me without even saying a word.
You know, you really got to get your self together, people.
The future. He came from the future. And so do I.
But you said that he wasn't human, that he was some other kind of being.
Another world and another time.
Attention, people of Earth. I have an important announcement to make.
That you're all cows. That you're all cattle on their farm. Okay? That's what it is.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Really funny. Really funny.
Yeah, laugh it up, buddy. Laugh it up.
Okay.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. I'm glad to hear you.
Hey, it's me. How you doing, man?
I'm doing fine. I just went through some like heavy duty thing with people that was kind of like probably over the head of most people, or most people thought I'm just some psycho not. But I really don't care. You know? It's 7:13 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the former United States. For those of you buried under 2 miles of ice in that government facility, you're never getting out alive. If there's anyone down there with consciousness, well, you've already left. It's funny how humans end up eating each other when they run out of food. You know, it's weird.
One cheeseburger, one Pepsi, one cheese.
Cheeseburger.
Pepsi, cheese. What do you want?
I have a cheeseburger and a small Coke.
Yeah. Cheeseburger. I used to live in the cities. They used to have something called city chicken. They used to sell it on the corners. I used to say it was like homeless people breaded and on a meat on a stick. That's pretty sick and disgusting, isn't it? Not really. You know, that's basically the way it is. City chicken. Tastes like chicken. I remember there was like this talk, this guy was explaining this weird stuff. People don't really follow stuff because people have no idea, especially what goes on in the African continent. There was a guy talking about, you know, how they were arresting people who were selling human food. And the guy was saying, he goes, I know it was human because I've tasted it before. Yeah. It was like in Liberia. You can like research that story. You may find that. People don't understand. You know, you take a human, all right? You take a cow. You take a pig, you know. I don't know. Maybe some pigs have more consciousness than humans. Maybe some cows have more consciousness. All right. than the person you live with. It's all weird. It's really weird. Well, when you talk about stupid stuff like this, and it's like stupid stuff. I mean, it's like, so the world's being what? We've got reptilian aliens that basically eat people and are trying to take over the planet. And then you've got these people with ridiculously long lifespans, 20, 30,000 years. Well, they're not people, but they're aliens. All sorts of things like that go on. Spacecraft. And then you got people playing student government, but now they're grown up. And so that's what Washington is a bunch of kids dressed in like weird suits, pretending or playing King of the Mountain. And you got media that are just like gossip tabloid, right, of the 70s. But when you say that, nobody knows it because people weren't around. So the people who were around in the 70s no longer really, well, they don't watch shows like this, and they don't think about it. And anybody born back then just doesn't even know what I'm talking about. They don't know about it. Their kids don't know about it. And if their kid had a kid, their kid doesn't know about it. It's like I was saying the other day, you got 3 generations of people who are functionally illiterate, which is actually a term created by the National Institute of Health, NIH.gov. It's the same as the other stuff I talk about is based on CDC.gov statistics that are published. But for some reason, I get throttled when I quote facts. All right. And that's why I say it's like these networks, they'll say, well, we're allowed to tell you this and read this stuff, but you're not, because you're not. And that's what for people who don't get the joke when I belch. It's just my going after the whole system. Well, anyway, I hope to hell that this particular video, sorry if this noise is affecting you in some way. I hope this isn't throttled. And just chill out about everything. And what happens if you discover, did you ever watch the show? It was like that HBO thing, Westworld. When the one character, the woman, the female, was kind of the lead character. I forget her name. And she goes, whatever we are, right? But she knew she was not like the people that were in charge, who were fixing her and trying to program her and stuff. But as it turned out, she was figuring it out. And so even if you figure out that you're just, an android, a biological unit created by aliens. But then again, we're aliens too, right? To some other group. Well, then just go with it. I mean, what are you going to do? That's the whole thing. And it's like, get caught up in politics, get angry, get frustrated, act out, protest. I mean, just live your life. And that's what I'm saying. The whole thing's absurd. So even, what I'm talking about, this consciousness and stuff. All right. Okay, so you might say, well, maybe I'm delusional, right? So what? So what? The thing is, there's nothing you can do about it. And you have to accept yourself as you are. And everybody's trying to change something, change somebody. It's like right now, this big movement, like I call it, like they're trying, they don't come out and say it. I haven't heard anybody say this but me, but what they're trying to do is, you have to look at what end game. And it's like all of their protests and all of their ideas seem that like they want some kind of utopia, right? They believe, well, if we get this, if we get that, if we can like get these people controlled, get rid of them, you do this, do that, then we'll have this perfect world. We'll save the planet, we'll save everything, and everything will be cool. Right? So it's like utopia. Well, there is no utopia. It doesn't work that way. It's a planet. You're not going to save the earth. The earth is going to exist whether humans survive or not. So why don't you come out and say it? You're self-centered narcissist, right? Right? You're worried about yourself. Look, you got a limited lifespan. However that happened, we're supposed to at least live twice as long. So these powers that be, these whoever's in charge, this organized crime syndicate or the corporatocracy, they're obviously doing something that has reduced our lifespan by 50%. Okay, that's number one you should be scared of. You should be scared of these things that they're creating. And you should be scared that there are no consequences for the powers that be, but that the average person is being victimized. Everybody's being victimized. It has nothing to do with the things they claim, right? Everybody's a hypocrite. It's all showbiz. So it's like, just chill out, man. People need to chill out and just live their life. It's like my nosy neighbor, I basically just planted trees and bushes and heightened the fence. It's like I'm tired of it's like mind your own business. And that goes for you too. People are just too damn nosy. Who cares? Take care of yourself and the people around you. There's an old thing they used to have called love. Just like live, laugh, love, as that like movie was or whatever. Just be who you are. I get caught up in this craziness. There's no end game to it. They're not going to accomplish it. There's not going to be any utopia. There's not going to be, no cult of personality. No savior is going to save you. Right? Some politician in the year 2022 or 2024 or something like that. That's petty. Politics is petty. It's student government. It's like middle school student government. It's like that they've grown up and now they're in Washington and they're playing there. It reminds me of like monkeys in suits. That's what I see. When I see politicians and press conferences and meetings, diplomats and stuff, do you know what I see? I see a bunch of like monkeys with coats and ties on. All right? Or pigs with suits or whatever. Sloths. That's a good one. Sloths. Imagine a sloth in a suit. So it's like, if you can't see life that way, then you're either not conscious or you're afraid to face yourself in the mirror and accept who you are and what you are. You know, you can't change reality. All right. So why are you getting so upset about it? Why are you so angry? Why are you trying? Why are you like panicking? I mean, just watch my videos. I've told you, I've given you the answer. I figured it out. You just get free of them. You free yourself from them. All right. And just live your life. Well, it's not that easy to do. You know, I have responsibilities. Yes, so did I. Yeah. You don't snap your fingers and change it overnight. But you got to come up with a plan. You got to take the first step and say, I'm not going to play this game anymore. It's the first step. Become aware that it's just a nonsensical game. You know, and there's just a bunch of middle school student council members playing like zoo animals, probably being controlled by predators. You know, who knows? I mean, everywhere you look, it's absurd, it's contradictory, it's hypocrisy. You don't know what you don't know. I'm trying to get, TonyCaravanLive.com. Get the shirt. I'm trying to get that phrase out to people. And people might think, well, what's a big deal about it? No, it's the most important thing. People have to get through their head. You don't know what you don't know. Accept that. The unknowable. And the possibility that everything you think you know is wrong. Everything you know is wrong. And then just live your life. That doesn't mean you can't be happy and live a good quality of life. You know, there's going to be some sun out today. I'm going to take a walk down to the grocery store, get a few things. I'm going to come back, probably go out and hang out in my lounge chair and get some more suntan. I got to pick a bunch of lettuce, man. I have so much. My garden is, I planted seeds. It's rained. It's grown. It's crazy. I could feed the neighborhood if they wanted it, but most people don't care. They rather a frozen pizza or takeout food, right? But I got all this stuff. Yesterday, I've got my bar in my kitchen. I sat down, had a few beers, smoked a couple cigars, listening to some great music my favorite music, whatever your favorite music is, doesn't matter. I sat there for a couple hours and it was just a beautiful experience. You can do whatever you want to, whatever your thing is. Focus on what makes you happy and just do it. And get out of this world media circus and political circus. Right? These are people who are they're narcissistic. Well, they're narcissists, but I mean narcissistic sociopaths. They're so self-important in their own minds that they're trying to get you to think they're important, but they're not important. And the things they do have no repercussions on you. Oh, but they're going to either raise taxes or lower taxes, or we'll get a such and such. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Man, you maniacs. Politicians have been promising things since the beginning of time. Problem is, there's too much revisionist history and nobody reads history. Nothing changes. The more things change, the more things stay the same. Right? These are the best of times. These are the worst of times. All those old phrases are true. Right? Every time a politician makes a promise, It either never comes to fruition or the next guy takes it away. So then what's the purpose? Why are you investing so much of yourself into these people, into these things? Why are you allowing yourself to stress over it, get angry, hate, argue with your family members, friends, people getting fired from jobs, spending all this time on social media that didn't even exist 10 or 12 years ago? Carrying, like, saw the new Apple thing, the iPhone. They're like put so much into that their new version that's going to come out in the fall. Like, how they've boosted up FaceTime and all this texting and stuff. And the thing about it is, it's all based around them making a buck. Like you could FaceTime with somebody and listen to the same music or watch the same movie together, right? While you're on FaceTime. And you could even have that transferred to have that Apple played on your on your Apple TV. Now think about the concept of that. There's no way in hell I'm going to FaceTime with you and you're going to be able to listen to one of my songs unless I have Apple Music subscription and you have an Apple Music subscription. And there's no way we're going to be able to watch the same movie on Apple TV unless we both have an Apple TV subscription to their app. And there's no way, because I already know it, because I have an older smartphone, Apple iPhone. I don't have a cell phone service on it, but it is already outdated. It won't take even the current operating system. So you're going to have the latest iPhone. So ultimately, what is it all about? It's about them making billions of dollars. And the one part that you missed, why would they be doing all of these types of things that would be promoting people being not together? Right? In other words, there's a movement right now in the techno world to improve ways of people to communicate over distances and share things over distances, meaning lockdown, eternal lockdown. They don't want people getting together. It's like, yeah, I guess that, first of all, the average person, who can afford all that stuff? Then you become a wage slave. All right. That's the answer. If you could find a job, but there are no jobs. Jobs are going away. But the idea is to keep you in your house, keep you in your apartment. And so you can spend all your money that you got to have all these things, the latest device, the latest apps, the latest subscriptions, the latest cloud services, so that you can be locked in your house, your apartment, and you could have movie night with your other friends in other places. Well, forget about inviting people over to watch, a movie together or listen to some music and hang out. See, that was my takeaway. I watched that thing. It's very interesting what they're doing, and it should be scary. It should be scary that that's what they're doing, because there's so many other things they could do. They could improve this technology, for example. They could come up with something new. Like I say, Steve Jobs, there's one more thing. Where's the new thing? Right? In other words, this fixation on politics is pop culture, the cult of personality, and these fake resurrected social justice issues from the past that were already solved and already succeeded has diverted people away. And so nobody's doing anything. They're just like tweaking stuff that guys like me and other people created for them in the 80s and the 90s. In other words, society's stagnating, right? It's like they're trying to build a better mousetrap by just tweaking the existing mousetrap instead of like coming up with a completely revolutionary idea. So when I watched that, I thought, man, you guys got all these billions and billions of dollars, all these people making 6 and 7 figures working for you, and you can't really improve anything. I can't watch my video because it's like freezes up. There should be a button. I could turn this to grayscale. There should be a button, like I said before, where I could have picture in picture right here, right? Just by selecting something and saying PIP, picture in picture, and I should be able to show you, have this thing come up and fill this space on its own. Simple technology, it exists, right? They don't do stuff like that. They're not improving things. Like, and then the same with like, it's like music. I should be able to like play a song for you. But if I do, I'll get a copyright strike. Well, why would I get a copyright strike? I mean, just pay the royalty. Right? You got advertisements running. Yeah. It's like the whole system is like the potential, the possibilities, the fact that it's the year 2021 hasn't sunk in to people over a certain age. And people under a certain age, they don't know any better. They don't know that the world has stagnated for the past 20 some years. They don't know that the internet, that I was doing exactly what I'm doing right now in the 1990s, late 1990s, over 20 some years ago. And it was better because you could do cooler things. See, they don't know that. Because you had all kinds of control panels and extensions, and you can alter your system folder and stuff like that. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff. They took out of even Apple's photo booth thing. They used to have a thing where you could change the background. That like magically disappeared. Why? In other words, the technology is like, it's getting worse. It's like they're feeding it so that everything works within things they can control or they can utilize, and that they can keep people in their cubicles. And yet we're higher beings than that. And there's all kinds of other things that may be going on that we're not even aware of. The Earth may be heading for an extinction event. Looks likely. Number one, we don't know what's going on with these various things that are floating around and managed to make it to 190 plus countries. We don't know what we don't know. We can't trust anybody. Every day another story comes on and it contradicts what was said before. They say, oh, this guy lied, or he admits this and he admits that. This person lies. This person did this. And you're still watching the news, and you're a news junkie, and you're getting dopamine hits on Twitter, right? And you're not watching or listening to guys like me that are trying to explain to you, wake up, just be happy. Quality of life can be good. The first step, the more you get away from that, the happier you'll be. And the more you get away from that, the more inexpensive your cost of living will be, which means your quality of life will improve ultimately. People just don't get it. I don't know. Anyway.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm done. Hopefully this thing works. If it doesn't, then I am really done. So I may or may not see you tomorrow. If I don't, I hope to hell you figure it out and just stop paying attention to the media circus and all this stuff. It's just a bunch of bull. They're just trying to control you, program your bioelectric brain. All right? You're just a zombie for them. And if you can't see that, well, then they got to you. Yeah. If you don't understand what I'm saying, they got to you. Think about that. All right. That's that. Bye.